All right, guys, we are back. I just did a whiskey review of Jameson's and Bushmills. You can check that out. I don't know if it'll come out before or after this, but anyway. I decided to go ahead with this BOCK by St. Arnold Brewing Company. I wanted to go and review this. I thought a German-style BOCK might follow a whiskey pretty well. And we'll take a quick look at their website for some information. The Springbock is a seasonal beer. It says it's an authentic copper-colored German-style bock, celebrating the coming of spring. I'm not going to read much more than that right now because I want to go ahead and taste this before it changes my perspective on what I'm having. But I don't really remember this. I don't remember having the six-pack, the other five. That doesn't say much because I drink enough beer that it's hard for me to even keep track. I might have to make a spreadsheet of all the stuff that I drink just because I keep going through the reviews and you constantly sort of get lost. Let's go ahead and crack this open and see what we think. Let me go ahead and change cameras there so I can pour. And if you don't like my pouring, please just leave comments here on YouTube. I'll be happy to delete your comments and complaints. When my ancestors were drinking out of aluminum cans, when men were men, and died of amoebic dysentery. Let's see here. So yeah, St. Arnold, Springbok, German style. We'll let that sit for a minute. I love the copper color, the little bit of foam on top. It's kind of nice. I'm just gonna let that sit for a second. I will go ahead and see if I can give it a smell. Frothy, yeasty, mildly sweet. 1/3 of a note of like molasses, maybe. Some light sweetness in there. Very not floral. It smells good. I get a little bit of malt. It's almost reminds me of graham crackers slightly. Very lightly. It's not overwhelming. Like maybe 30% graham crackers. Maybe just for a second, animal crackers. I know that seems like a weird, thing to say, but it does like remind me just a little bit of those smells. I think those things, by the way, are really important. It's like, what do you enjoy? What do you like? I would really encourage you, it's like you watch review stuff like I'm doing. My reviews are biased because I just like certain things. I find certain things to be more tasty to me. That's what I focus on. A Bock is kind of the middle of the road. I can't even think of a Bock that I've had that I was just like over the moon about. A lot of the beers that I like the most are lagers and pilsners or Belgian beers. There's something about Belgian yeast in particular that I'm very, very fond of. So a little darker, it's almost like graham crackers or animal crackers with a touch of brown sugar, about 25%. Just wonderful, wonderful aroma that comes off of this. Like this is, if I was going to introduce somebody to darker beer, if they're used to lagers or pilsners and we want to go just a little darker, stout is kind of in the middle. Bock is kind of in the middle. It's before you get to stout, Russian stouts and imperial stouts. Man, that's really tasty. It's surprising to me that I don't remember this much. I didn't grab this beer and go, "Oh yes, we finally get to review the St. Arnold Springbok." Malt, hops. How can it be sweet and bitter at the same time? It's like it's balanced. I don't feel overwhelmed. I think if you have a very delicate palate when it comes to beer, if you're one of the persons is like, oh, it tastes like it tastes like dirt and sewage and mothballs or whatever. Some people just don't like beer. especially bitter notes. I find bitter notes in particular to be one thing in food, for instance. A lot of people don't like bitter in their food, and I don't think that I'm one. I actually happen to like bitter notes in contrast and comparison with other stuff. I particularly like Vietnamese food because I can get a bun cha. And the bun cha, the vermicelli bowl, it's this mixture of flavors and textures. And then it's also a mixture of like hot and cold. That full contrast is what I find so appealing and amazing. I first ate Vietnamese food at Dang's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, by the way. There was a little shopping center called Little Saigon, is what we called it. It was absolutely amazing. I thought I knew food, and the Vietnamese family that runs that place blew my mind. I was like, whoa, what the? It was the first time you were ever introduced to fish sauce and Nook Mam and, Nook Cham and those things. So for this, it seems balanced. This is probably a good beer if I was going to try to introduce somebody to something that was a little more a microbrew than Shiner Bock, but I was trying to lead them towards darker beers and more, not extreme, but more flavorful profiles in their tasting notes. It's very well balanced. There's a note of sweetness in the front, and then on the back end, there's that little bit of bitter from the hops, but it's perfectly balanced. I don't feel overwhelmed when I drink this. It's not like Guinness, for instance, like a stout, where you're just like, the first time I had a Guinness, it was like, oh my God, am I drinking fucking motor oil? And this is the first, I wasn't even into beer at this point. This was in college, probably I was 19 years old. It just seems so dark. But as you acclimated to it and tried more, so you get oatmeal stouts. Oatmeal stouts are a little sweeter. It was a little easier for me to get that direction, and then you figure out what flavor profile do you enjoy. I'm not drinking as much in terms of like darker beers, but over the winter, more whiskeys, scotches in particular, more flavorful, more rich, more robust. The BOCK is in the middle. I think the climate that I'm in Austin, Texas, has led. We had a record heat wave where it was like, oh, it goes down to 95 degrees, and we're like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. Because it'd been like 105 for, 6 weeks in a row with no rain. Darker beers are less appealing to me at the moment, I think, because of the climate that I'm currently in. And if you think about like Mexican beers, crisper, lighter lagers, Mexican lagers, and I think some of it is because of the climate that they're in. So this brings an interesting note when we talk about that. Like, essentially, the more you go towards the equator, you get like lighter beers. The same thing is chilies, which I love, by the way. I'm carnivore, but dirty carnivore, and I love chilies. If I was told I couldn't eat chilies, I don't know if I'd make it. But I love capsaicin and spicy food, and the closer you go to the equator, the spicier the food becomes. Chilies are New World, but they were exported to the Old World, so you get like Sichuan cuisine, which uses some chilies. Sichuan peppercorn is a different thing. That's from a shrub. But chilies themselves are very prominent in Thai food, Vietnamese food. Very spicy is how it's thought of. And when you sweat from eating the chilies, it kind of cools you down. The more you go towards the poles, you get much more bland food, and then people are not as open to chilies generally. So when we're thinking about, hey, that's a spicy meatball in Italy, that stuff did not happen until after Columbus and after they had access to chilies. So the more towards the equator you go, you get spicier food, lighter beers, lighter, crisp beers to kind of cut the heat, I think, and not just in capsaicin, but also in just temperature. Darker beers, I think, are more European in a sense. That's where their roots come from, at least. It's from darker grains that were grown, and the alcohol itself was like a preservation method so that you could preserve grain. The reason you wind up, for instance, I think with like blended whiskeys, is you had people all over, say, Scotland with their barrels of whiskey, preserving their grains and then mixing them to make a blend of all the whiskeys that were available. So just interesting factoids in relation to beer, liquor, alcohol culture, which I think is just inordinately interesting. When I go places, I typically want to know what kind of food you have and what kind of music you have. And that's because I grew up an hour away from New Orleans. Love you guys. Really great. There's some bitterness. If you do not like hops and you do not like bitter at all, you should probably stay away from this. Now, I think it's less than 50% of the flavor profile. The front of it is sweeter, nice, light, I think refreshing in a sense. But you can look at the color and assume what's going on with the flavor profile here. It's just a little bit darker. Let's go to their website and see what they got to say, because it says, this big, deeply flavored lager has been aged to create a smooth, malty taste with a hint of sweetness. Aha! A light addition of German hops balances the malt flavor. Hey, what did I tell you? Now, I am an amateur, bro. I did not go to beer school. Well, I mean, I went to college and did a lot of drugs, but anyway, that's another story. So, when you're looking at this, do you see how I kept saying that it was like balanced with the hops? Like it was like 50%, 50%. It says it's best consumed at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It is not 40 degrees Fahrenheit right here. And why do Americans, I mean, because I'm pretty sure about this, we use Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Why? What is that? What is it with Americans? Americans are fucking weird. We're not on the metric system. Like, you remember that thing? Was it the Hubble? Where they fucked up the things because they measured in like inches instead of centimeters or something. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, recommended pairings: roasted chicken, goulash, and grilled game. I can see that. It says it's malty, hoppy body. Let's check out the awards here. 5 different types. Oh, I didn't even pull that up. Whoop. 5 different types of malts to create a rich, sweet, complex malt flavor. We only use malted barley, no other grains of cereal such as corn and rice. Our 2-row pale malt comes from the North Plains, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Our specialty malts come from Belgium. We use 2 hop varieties, Pearl and Saaz. Very, very interesting, by the way. Now, what do I know about Pearl and Saaz? Almost nothing. Man, if you... Listen, one of the things that led to me doing tastings is there's a film called Sommelier. If you've not looked it up, please do so. It may be on Netflix. And then I watched Somm Into the Wine. I was so blown away because one of the things I really enjoy is geekery. People who love like a specific thing, and then seeing a sommelier taste wines blind and go, this is Australian, 95 to 97 from this region. I'm like, oh my, wow. And it's just pattern recognition from just trial and error again and again and again. When of all our barrels, the St. Arnold is the laziest. It takes 8 weeks to ferment and age. It's our second lager and also proved, let's see here, challenging to devise. Not the least of the issues was the time we had to wait between brewing and tasting. When brewing on most of our ales, we knew what it had in about 2 weeks. Now we had to wait 2 months with the Springbok. Anticipation. And when we weren't happy with it, frustration. Bocks were traditionally brewed in the spring. Okay, here's the deal. And I just want to express this, okay? I teach massage therapists. This is a fucking beer. It's a beer. You can buy beer anywhere. You can buy it at a convenience store. They're giving me a story. They're telling me about the creation of this art form. And I'm so drawn in at the moment in my drunken stupor that I'm just waxing poetic about whatever the fuck is going on right here, because bocks were traditionally made in spring to mark the end of the brewing season. Prior to the advent of refrigeration, can you imagine Texas without air conditioning? Yes, it's called hell. So The brewing stopped once the weather turned too warm, so brewers would use the rest of the store of grains to make a bigger, higher alcohol beer, some of which could be stored over the summer. There is no truth to Bock being what you get when you clean out the brew kettle or any such legend. It is its very own recipe, a tasty one at that. The name will likely come from the town of Einbach, interesting, which was well known in the Middle Ages for brewing great beer. Over the years, the Ein was lost and Beck or became Bock. By the way, is that where Beck gets his name? I know that's a weird caveat, but that's how my brain works. So let's go and take a look. By law in Germany, to call a beer a Bock, it must be brewed in a high starting gravity and thus to a high alcohol content. Our beer follows these guidelines. There are many beers in the US that use the term Bock for their beers, which really aren't Bocks. They may be perfectly good beers, but they're not Bocks. They're just light, dark-colored, light-bodied American lagers. Now, so this is me, okay? I have a Care Bear stare to the St. Arnold Brewing Company. And I'm not being completely blown away by every beer you've made, the Tart Nation, whatever. But you basically just gave a big middle finger. Like, no, let me explain contextually what's going on. So Joel Salatin is a farmer who wrote a book. It was like, Everything I Want to Do is Illegal. It's a really amazing, sort of almost like libertarian treatise from a farmer. But it made me understand the caveats, the background of what's going on in farming. And basically people going at a farmer's market, encountering his beef and going, but is it organic? Fuck. Because organic is a trademark owned by the U.S. USDA. The U.S., what is that? The U.S., I don't know, let's look it up. What the fuck is it? USDA. It's the United States Department of Agriculture. There we go. So the reason I mention that is Joel Salatin's beef goes beyond organic, but organic is a trademark and a certification owned by the USDA that you have to, as an individual farmer, go through tons of paperwork and money and things to be able to tell people that your stuff is organic. So you get to this weird thing where basically I feel like St. Arnold just went, hey, yeah, fuck you. Okay, that's a great American beer and all, but that's not technically a Bock. That sort of minutia can lose some people, and that's fine. But I find it very interesting from a political, economic, social justice, equity standpoint. And to make it even crazier, are you ready? I'm a white guy from South Louisiana who lives in Central Texas who teaches Thai massage. And they say, no, you're culturally appropriating. And I'm like, cool, you're telling me what I teach isn't Thai? And they're like, exactly, it's not Thai massage. I'm like, great, let's move on. And they go, what? You can't just steal. And I'm like, ooh, fuck. Okay, anybody can brew beer. Anybody can brew beer. But will you dedicate your life to mastery? And what I saw from the St. Arnold Brewing Company, because I'm an asshole, I like this sort of shit. I like the big fucking middle finger. I was like, why do I feel a Care Bear stare, heartfelt resonance corazon with this? And it's because it's a little bit of like, hey, let me very politely give you a little information if you're willing to read it all. But there are certain definitions for what a Bock is. Now, in the end, the deal is, what do you enjoy? What do you want? What do you like? And this is great. I don't think in any way, shape, or form it's my favorite beer. I don't plan on running out and like buying this immediately. This is me. I don't get super excited when I see this can. I'm like, yeah, it was all right. But I do like that St. Arnold gave me a little bit of education. And massage therapists, what are you doing with your website? So do you know how fucking crazy it is? And they're like, oh my God, he said the F word. I don't like this. He has all these liquor reviews on his unprofessional massage channel. And I'm like, what is massage? What is professional? Hey, Snoop, what is professional? Do you make money? Yes. Do people like what you do? Yes. Do your bills get paid? Cool. And fuck those people. You guys have fun. I'll see you again soon. You can check out St. Arnold Brewing Company at starnold.com. This was listed under seasonal beers, by the way. So starnold.com, you can check out what they do. And I appreciate you for tuning in to liquor, tastings, reviews. It'll continue to expand on Salud with Robert Gardner. Really appreciate you guys.